It's been too long. I was without a laptop for 2 months. And I mean, you can't really make videos without a means in which to make the videos, so I've been out of the game for too long. I already feel like super awkward trying to do all of this again. I'm gonna have to relearn. Anyway. Welcome back to Movie Munchies. I'm Alexis. If you've never been here before, we watch things and we eat them. Today is treat day. Yesterday we watched Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, what should have been a couple weeks before, which has now turned into a few months ago. We watched Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Today is the culmination of all of that, and we are making a cake to honor the Chocolate Factory. It's not really a series. Films. Let's do it. I forgot my notes. I'll be right back. Anyway, so it kind of goes without saying, but we went with chocolate cake for this one. I used the same recipe that I used for Nightmare Before Christmas cake that I did, Yolanda Gamp's chocolate cake recipe. The only thing that is different about those two was that I actually did it the way that it's supposed to be made. In the other one, I made it a hot chocolate cake. This is just a regular, good old, ultimate chocolate cake recipe, and it's chef's kiss fantastic. So your same basic principles for making cake. Sift all the dry ingredients together in one bowl. Fluff your butter and sugar. Add your eggs to it. Make some kind of hullabaloo chocolate mess with cocoa powder and hot water. Mix those together. Alternate dry, wet, dry, wet, dry, wet. Put it in the pan, put it in the oven. And that's all she wrote. So I decided to do 3 tiers. And I went with a 6-inch tier, an 8-inch tier, and a 10-inch tier. And I wanted to do an element in each tier for all the kids. So all the cake baked at varying times at like 350. I preceded the cake baking with the making of all the fillings. Because I had like 5 kids, 5 different elements for the fillings. Well, no, because Mike TV ended up just being nerds covering the top of the bottom cake. But anyways, I started by making honeycomb to represent the golden ticket for our Charlie and the golden ticket top tier. So I did decide to go with the chocolate mousse and honeycomb combination. I started with the honeycomb, which I have made before. I didn't do it right before because it's supposed to be made with light corn syrup and I only had dark corn syrup at the time. So I was not exactly confident doing this again, but I at least knew, I had an idea of how the process goes. And it's actually really, really simple. Sugar, light corn syrup, and water. Put that going in a saucepan. You mix it until everything dissolves and it starts boiling, and then you put a candy thermometer in it to track the temperature. Now here's what had happened. It was taking a really long time initially for the temperature to get to where it needed to be. And it took me a long time to realize what was going on. Because the sugar on the first attempt started to burn, which was obviously not what we wanted, but the temperature, according to the thermometer, was not where it was supposed to be, which was like 350, 300, something like that. My sugar's burning. It's only at 250. I might have to do this again. Failure. Look at it. I have the second pot going. And initially I thought the problem was that the heat wasn't evenly distributed, so I decided that turning the pot gradually would help. But then I was standing there staring at the thermometer and realized that the level of the sugar corn syrup bubbling in the pot was very, very low. And I kind of had the realization that the level of the sugar was not high enough for the thermometer to get an accurate reading of the temperature. You can see me having that realization and digging the box for the thermometer out of the trash to look at it and confirm what I had suspected, in that there's this little divot, indentation or whatever at a certain point in their thermometer, and you want the level of whatever you're taking the temperature up to be at least at that point or a little bit above it. Otherwise, it's not going to get an accurate reading. So then I went through several stages of grief, including denial and reluctance, anger a little bit, maybe more like frustration, more denial. I tried using different thermometers to take the temperature. I knew it wasn't going to work and I needed to start over, so eventually I got to the acceptance portion and started a third batch. Third time's the charm. Which was a little better, but even still, there wasn't enough of the sugar to get it high enough. So it took a better reading of the temperature, but ultimately I had to guesstimate and just pulled it. Really, I was afraid that I had screwed everything up, but at that point, it had taken way too long for me to get past this part. It should have been done a long time ago, but so I continued on with it. And all that was left after that was adding baking soda to that mixture, which makes it floof up quite impressively. I might have overstirred it just a little bit, but it was okay. And so I just put it into a glass container that was lined with parchment paper so that I could get it out later and let it cool for a while. Now we wait. Let's see if it worked. Let's see how this honeycomb turned out. Even if it is honeycomb. Smells good. Uh-oh. I was so afraid it was not going to come out well. That tastes pretty good. I thought I had made something that was not honeycomb, but I guess we did it. Okay. So then once I figured out that was a success, I went ahead and chopped it up. There were some darker spots on the inside, I imagine from a variance in the temperature and or an uneven mix of the baking soda into the sugar, whatever. I don't know. Doesn't really matter. I picked out the good pieces and coated them in, I used candy melt, I believe. Candy melts, and I added a little bit of a neutral oil just to thin it out so that I could get an even coating around the pieces. And it went surprisingly well and was very successful. And yeah, that was one for the book. I think I'll make that again just for shits and giggles because it was good to eat just as is, as like a candy, as a munchies and crunchies, Yeah, success, number one. Well, depends on whether or not the rest of it was a success. Anyway, moving on to the mousse, which was also part of the top tier. I used a recipe. I was specifically looking for a sturdier mousse. I've made chocolate mousse once before, and not even by myself. I was being taught how to make it by an actual pastry chef who makes it on the regular. I had a vague idea of what needed to happen, but I didn't fully remember. And also, I wanted to make sure that the mousse was not solid, but it had enough integrity to be a filling. I found a recipe for a chocolate mousse cake. by, oh dear, Nick McRides. He had an interesting method. All the bones of what a mousse, as I understand it, should be and the components of it were there. His process was interesting. I was able to watch a video of him making it, and so I just followed it pretty much the way that he did. So that started with melting chocolate. It was both, I used semi-sweet and milk. He used dark chocolate and milk chocolate. And he said to use cooking chocolate. I just use chocolate chips, man. Like, I'm not trying to make things hard for myself. Did it mess something up? I don't think so. Anyways, it also called for egg yolks. And I remember adding sugar to the egg yolks in the process of making a mousse before, so I decided to do that this time. He doesn't do that. He just kind of pops his egg yolk straight into the chocolate mixture. And that's where I think there's a little bit of a disconnect in the process of how mousse is made, but I did the same thing, and he said that it would get real like dough-like and firm, and it did. And I'm glad I watched the video beforehand, because if I had done this and seen that happen, I would have freaked out. Thought I'd done something wrong. I also used gelatin for this mousse, so I had to let that sit in some water for a little while, like 5 minutes, to get all nice and snotty. Then I heated up some cream just in the microwave and added the gelatin to the hot cream so that it would dissolve in there. And this is still, I don't know what the regular method for making mousse is, but I think this is still along the lines of we're kind of a little bit left field. But I added the hot cream and gelatin to that fudge stuff and just mixed it real well until it was smoothed out. Regardless of whether or not this is the correct way to do it, it turned out just fine. So then it was the matter of whipping some cream, which I added vanilla to, just a little bit. It also whipped the egg whites to make a meringue. And added more sugar to that, it said to add it in like 3 or 4 parts, I can't remember. But you whip the egg whites until they get to a soft peak and then start adding the sugar a little bit at a time. So I let those whip until they got to, is it called a hard peak? A stiff peak. There you go. To the point where if you turn the bowl, it won't fall out. Then I just folded the whipped cream and the egg whites into that chocolate mixture as well as I could without like stirring all the air out of it, you know. The egg whites were quite stiff and a little bit hard to stir in there. I don't know, like, I'm sure you can over whip egg whites, but I don't know. At what point does that happen, you know what I mean? Oops. Anyways, I managed to get them mixed into there, and I put some into a 6-inch pan so that it would set like that, and then I put the rest in just a springform pan. I still don't know what to do with it, but I'll figure that out. That one's still sitting in my fridge at this point. I'll eat it. Just trying to figure out the best way to eat it, you know what I mean? So those had to sit in the fridge to set, and I let those sit for a couple of days while I did all the rest of everything else. Let's see, what else did I do? There was so many elements to this cake that I've either never done before, attempted only once, or just had only done with help, you know? So there were moving parts all over the place in regards to this cake and what I decided to do with it. But you know what? I think that's the fun of doing these, in my own opinion. Because I get to try new things, and the more I try things out, the better I get at it, and the more I learn, and more skills I have under my belt. Anyways, Bavarian cream. I decided for the middle tier to do blueberry and Bavarian cream to represent Violet and Augustus Gloop. I decided just to do store-bought blueberry preserves. I didn't want to make that part hard on myself. Like, I did all these other 1,000,010 things that I made from scratch, but the blueberry preserves, no, I bought that from the store. Make it simple. You know, why make life hard? Anyways, but I decided to make Bavarian cream, which I had never made before. I used the fancy Food Network recipe for that one. It was interesting. It started with powdered gelatin specifically, which I let bloom in some, I think it was milk. So I just mixed those together and set them to the side to do their thing. And heated up some heavy cream inside of one saucepan while the other I had just simmering water so that I could cook the egg mixture, which was more egg yolks and sugar. I had to whisk that for a while, and the amount of whisking in this cake specifically, oh my god, like, I should make a montage of all the times that I just, like, had to crank my arm back. It was a lot of whisking. I added some vanilla to the cream mixture that was going. I don't even know at what point the egg yolk and sugar mixture is whipped enough. But whenever that it was, I stopped and added the cream, the egg yolks and the sugar. Very slow, like, while keeping everything moving. And then I put that on top of the pot of simmering water to let it cook and thicken. The recipe said to whisk that and let it thicken up until it got to the point where it would coat a wooden spoon. For whatever reason, I don't have wooden spoons, so just use my spatula, and you can see there. It was thick enough to coat the spatula. So once that was done, then I added the gelatin milk stuff to that and whisked that into there until it had dissolved completely. And then I had to set that to the side to cool. And the recipe was not specific about what kind of whipped cream to fold into this. I imagine he meant, like, whip some cream and add it. I just used Cool Whip, man. Why not? Is that the thing that messed it up? I don't know. It could be. Because at this point, you know, actually, maybe it was before. I don't know what happened to this. But it broke at some point. The cream did. The texture ended up being really gritty, which was not super pleasant in a textual sense. But you know what? It still tasted good. So in the end, it was fine. It was fine. I used it. You couldn't really, by the time it got into the cake and was surrounded by all the different other elements, it wasn't noticeable. So, you know, would I have used that to fill, like, a donut or a cream puff or something? Probably not, no. The texture of it was not right at all. It was not. But it tasted good. It went well with the cake. So, moving on. The filling for the bottom tier, I devoted to our dear friend, Veruca Salt, which I did go with the caramel peanut, salted caramel peanut. I just used Yolanda's quick caramel, quote-unquote, recipe, literally just a bag of Werther's soft caramels and like 1/4 of a cup of heavy cream. So I put the caramels into the pot until they just started to melt and added the cream to it and stirred it until it all came together and was all nice and smooth. Then I crushed up some peanuts. I was just eyeballing it according to how much caramel I had. I just pulsed them a little bit in the Ninja Blender, food processor thing, whatever it is you call it, and mixed that with the caramel. Caramel. I say caramel, honestly. I do. And I've had people try to sit here and create. I don't think it really matters, you know. You can say caramel. That's fine. It's just a lot of extra effort, you know what I'm saying? Like caramel. I'm from the South. You cut out unnecessary vowels and consonants and all that stuff, you know what I mean? Like, anyway. So I decided that I would crumb coat all of the cakes in chocolate ganache. Chocolate ganache is so easy. Literally just... Is it raining? It's raining. Cozy. Anyway, I just used chocolate chips. I think semi-sweet chocolate chips. Poured some hot cream over it and stirred it together until it was nice and smooth. For an easier stir, that's much quicker, you can just let the cream and the chocolate sit there, cover it up for a little while, like 10 minutes or so. I didn't want to sit and wait for it, so I just went ahead and stirred it. And I went with a chocolate version of the regular German buttercream that I use. I had never made just a plain chocolate version of this, and there were no specific instructions for how to turn it into. I was just like reading the comments in the recipe that I usually reference. I kind of had to map it out on my own, so I added cocoa powder to everything that went into the custard mixture, and as that was heating up, I added chocolate chips to it. I don't remember how much. I don't even remember the size of the batch of buttercream that I made, but that's how that went. And once that custard mixture was cooled, I added that to the butter and powdered sugar mix until it became buttercream. Okay, stacking and filling the cakes. So I leveled all the cakes and then simple seared them to make sure they stayed moist. And then it was time to fill them. So I made a buttercream border just to keep all the fillings inside the cakes. And I put the peanut caramel filling inside the bottom, the 10-inch. And I just sprinkled some salt on top of that for the quote-unquote salted caramel element. And then I went ahead and crumb coated that in the chocolate ganache and went back later after that had chilled enough and frosted it with the buttercream. So I did the same thing with the 8-inch, made another border with buttercream. And then I wanted to, since I was doing both the cream and the blueberry, I decided to swirl them so that it would come out like a checker pattern in the end. So I did a little swirl with the cream and then made sure to leave some gaps and spaces for the blueberry to go in between. It came out super cute, honestly. Whew. So for the 6-inch, I added the honeycomb pieces into the mousse, which had by this point set. That is so good. Just stuck a bunch of pieces in there and then decided to plop all of that onto the cake at one time. I should make a montage of me trying to get things out of pans and molds. And you know what? That would end up being like a 10-minute video on its own. I swear to God. I got there eventually. I just kind of ran a warm cloth over the pan and used a spatula to go around it to loosen it up, and it came out eventually, and it was a lot more than I had anticipated it being. I made it very thick later, and I had to work with it to get it all to stay in, and it gave me a hard time. I told you I always do this. I always choose the ooziest fillings to put in my cakes that just end up squishing out. I managed it. I popped it in the freezer as soon as I got it all together and then went back and covered it with ganache several times and then went back and frosted it with buttercream. What are we doing here? What is this? Oh dear, the toppers. Yeah, my original plan for the toppers for this cake. I wanted to make a top hat and a Willy Wonka staff, and I wanted to make... Can you hear that? Because it's loud. The rain? You probably can't hear it. I can. Anyway, I wanted to make the little flower teacups that are in Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory movie. Yeah, that didn't go exactly as I wanted it to. I'm still trying to decide if I actually enjoy making things out of gun paste and fondant. Because it seems like more often than not they give me trouble. And I'm sure there are like training videos or whatever that'll give me tips and tricks on how to work with fondant and with gum paste and to make things out of fondant and gum paste. Would I prefer to continue learning it on my own? I don't know. But when it came to the staff, I tried various different methods of trying to get some white gum paste around just a stick. Like, why was that so hard? I don't know. Eventually, I figured out that I just needed to fold it over a skewer and cut the excess off, which is what I did. And it worked out fine. Fine enough, you know? So once I had a gum paste stick, then I just made a ball to put on the top and a little, like, strip or to connect the two, you know? And that was the staff. Once I got past the covering a skewer part, it was fairly simple. And then I went on to the top hat, and I had no idea how I was going to accomplish that. My initial idea was that I wanted it to be hollow on the inside so that I could let it rest on top of the staff. But there was no, like, logical, practical way to do that. And I couldn't get the brim to curve in a way that would also dry. I don't know. I wanted to do a top hat for the cake, but I don't know. The way that this is going, I don't know if I'll be able to accomplish it. I don't know how to form the bottom rim so that the lip curls up. You know what I mean? And I wanted it to be hollow on the inside. So then what I decided to do was make a mold out of aluminum foil. I don't think I had a solid plan even then going into it. I was just going to make the shape that I wanted, cover it in plastic wrap, and then cover it again in the fondant. And yeah, I think the idea I had in my head was that once it eventually dried, quote unquote, I'd be able to pull it off of there and have the shape that I was looking for. But I quickly realized as I was covering the thing that was not going to happen. So then I tried to switch gears and be like, okay, what if I just covered this whole thing in fondant and tried to smooth it out as best I can? And just use that as the top hat, because the shape of the foil underneath was the shape that I wanted, but the covering it in fondant part did not work very well because it was super lumpy, and just the effort of trying to smooth that out and get it to look nice wasn't going very well. And it looks okay on camera, but up close it was not okay. It was not okay. So then I had the bright idea after I'd done that, we'll just make a block of fondant in the shape of a hat, which was harder than it needed to be even still, because I couldn't figure out, I still was struggling to figure out how to get the rim to fold and curve the way that I wanted it to. Eventually I just like added extra strips of fondant underneath the lips of the brim in order to get that lift on them, and they just had to be solid like that. Change of plans. It took me so long to figure out the hat that I'm not doing the flower teacup. The hat and the staff are gonna go on top of the cake. Yeah, that should work out. It wasn't gonna be enough space for the teacup anyway. Anyways, yeah, I'm done with that. I'm done. So once those things were dry, or at least semi-dry, I went in and painted the cane. Willy Wonka's cane in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The staff kind of itself looks like it's made out of nerds, like a nerd rope, you know? So I just took a bunch of food coloring and painted a bunch of dots on there with different colors to make it look like that. And I kind of liked how it turned out. I did. And then I did my best to get the little swirl pattern on the top and painted the little rim where the two connect. Was it smooth going? No. Was I concerned about it? Nah. It looked alright from a distance. As long as nobody put their face up next to it and looked at all the flaws and imperfections, then we were good. And nobody was going to be doing that anyway, because this cake was for me. For the video. but, for me. So what I decided to do with the hat, what had happened was gravity ended up getting to it. It was such a heavy chunk of fondant that it all just pulled down and became really squat and wasn't as tall as I wanted it to be. So I ended up shaping another chunk of fondant to put on top of that, and then where the seam was, between the two, I made a purple band to go around that and cover it up. And I didn't film the part where I added the little W, curly brooch W thing that he wears in the film. I decided to add that to the hat. I think I used more white fondant for that, or maybe it was gun paste. Doesn't really matter. I just cut the little W shape out of that and stuck it onto the hat. And actually, you know what? For all the grief that the toppers gave me, it turned out cute. It turned out cute. I am so tired. When I woke up today, it felt like I'd gotten hit by a bus. And I looked like it too. Let's finish this thing. It's my least favorite part. Ooh, covering cakes with fondant. Covering cakes with fondant. I hate it. I hate it so much. I don't understand. And here's my issue. Here's what I need a real rolling pin is what I need. Because my initial problem is that I can never get the fondant rolled out big enough to fully cover the cake without any issues. I am getting better at it. So maybe I'm proud of myself for that a little bit. I am. So what I did was I covered the top tier, the 6-inch, and the bottom tier, the 10-inch, with black fondant. And then I covered the middle tier, the 8-inch, with white fondant and decided to paint a scenery of the chocolate room onto the middle tier of the cake. I just kind of winged it. I used picture references. I wanted to get the little candy cane, the swirly Tim Burton candy cane trees in there, the giant mushrooms, the little pumpkin things, the edible grass, and I just added some I tried to get the little flower teacup bushes in there and whatever. I just did a bunch of random stuff to make it look all whimsical and fun. And then I added little Oompa Loompas. I added one from each of the movies. Did they come out perfect? No. Are they adorable as hell? Yes, they are. They are. You get the idea. You see it, right? That's an Oompa Loompa. That's an Oompa Loompa if I ever saw one. That's the 71 Oompa Loompa. And then I found the best place to put the 2005 Oompa Loompa. Again, is it perfect? No. Did I leave enough room for him to have legs? No. But the idea, it was super cute. I thought it was super cute. I thought it turned out adorable as hell. And ultimately, I liked what I came up with for the middle tier. I was proud of my work. And I had to have a fan blowing on the cake to do my best to keep the fondant dry, so that it wouldn't be wet and me getting food coloring smeared all over it. But it turned out good. Then it was time to stack them. I have not gotten good at this. I haven't. Should I use something that's not bubble tea straws? Maybe. Then I'd have to get some real cutters, wire cutters or whatever to cut dowels for the cakes. But I think ultimately my problem is that I could never get it straight on there. Maybe I'll just Google the science behind stacking cakes and figure it out. I think that the fondant, covering cake with fondant, the more times I do it, the more successful I'll be. It just comes with practice. And this cake was so tall that I had to pull out the stool to get the top tier on the cake. Did it come out perfectly straight to the point where it did not at all lean? No. But I managed it. Then came adding all the little bits and parts, and what I did was basically threw a bunch of candy on it. I also made some golden eggs. I wanted to get those in there, so I just took some gold luster dust and brushed it over chocolate eggs, and there's still gold dust on our counter right now, but you know what, it's beautiful, that's fine. So for the top tier, the golden ticket Charlie tier, I decided to add some gold leaf to the top, and in hindsight I wish I had bought more than I did, because there wasn't enough to complete my vision for what I wanted the top tier of the cake to look like, but that's okay because I still had the gold dust, the luster dust, and so I just kind of did this number with that. And it came out nice and shiny and bright and sparkly and beautiful, and it was alright. It was alright. And then as promised, for the Mike TV element, I took some nerds and just kind of sprinkled them over the top tier, or the top of the bottom tier of the cake, which I think went really nice with the aesthetic of the middle tier as well. We got chocolate mushrooms, gobstoppers, gummy bears, M&M's, gold eggs, colored eggs. Just gonna throw things on there. Then I just threw all the rest of the candies that I got on the bottom. Yeah. There was no... I just did it. Then I decided which part was the front of the cake with my heart, and I added the toppers. I'll plop the hat on there, stuck the little cane in the top, and then added some lollipops to make it nice and colorful. I also decided to go with the chocolate drip to represent the chocolate waterfall for the chocolate room. And so I just did that around the top edge of the middle tier / the bottom of the top tier. The top of the middle. The tie was the top of the middle. And then it went as well as I had hoped it would. Honestly, like, this cake had a lot going for it. Like, there were a lot of elements, and it turned out massive, like way bigger than I thought it would in my head. I'm so proud of it because it was beautiful. Is it the exact replica of what I was picturing? Maybe not. But at this point, having done it, can I picture it being anything else? No, I can't. So there you have it. It turned out as perfectly as it needed to. There she is. Voila. I did it. Time to try it. Also, it's almost 3 o'clock in the morning, but perfect time for cake eating. It was short-lived, but they need to come off. The Charlie Golden Ticket layer. I got a piece of honeycomb. Chocolate on chocolate on chocolate. And it is good. Okay. I'm gonna have to take the top layer off. Oh my gosh. A Augustus and Violet layer. Little check pattern green with the blueberries and cream. Got a little squashed, but ooh, the blueberry is nice in there. Yes. Baruch salt. My TV with the nerds, but he's not in the cake. Nice. I'm proud of myself for these slices because they came out nice. And I got the salt. Tastes like Snickers. I like it. It's good. Oh my gosh. I did it. I feel accomplished. Well, there you have it. Success, I would say. I would call it a success. This was a fun one. Time consuming. There were a lot of elements to it, and you know what? I like pushing myself out the box, stretching my boundaries and seeing how far I can go and what will actually work and what won't. I think I enjoyed this. I did. God, cakes take so much effort, but I think they're worth it in the end. I dismantled this one as soon as I put it all together, and I think I like that about doing these videos. I enjoy the part where I have created this massive thing that took me several days, just immediately destroying it. And I think it would make me sadder if I didn't film all of it, but I did. And so it has been immortalized with great reverence. So all of you can see what I created with my brain and my hands. They all turned out really good. They tasted great. My favorite was the blueberries and cream layer. It was the most out there one, and the blueberry went really, really well with the chocolate, which I figured it would. But like, I'm super proud of it. It was my favorite. It was the favorite of multiple people who tried it. I did feed this cake to people. I didn't film it this time, but they definitely, I got rid of all of it. It was fun. It was really good. My other favorite was, I love the honeycomb in the mousse. The bottom tier tasted like a Snickers bar. Like, it was a success overall, and I'm super proud of it, and I'm happy that I did this, and I'm excited to do it again with something else. And you will find out what that something else is the next time that I make a cake. But anyways, that was Chocolate Factory Treat Day. Subscribe, turn on notifications, because you never know when my computer's going to crash, so I won't be able to post videos for 2 months, 3 months. Who even knows how long it's been by now. But I'm back. We're back. Not that any of you were super distressed about it, but one day I hope you will be. Honestly, that's my goal. One day I hope that I just get flooded with comments on my other videos like, "Where are you? We're waiting for you. Where are your videos?" So I need you to subscribe, okay? I need you to subscribe. I need you to click the bell so that you can get notifications. I need you to comment, okay? Which child from the Chocolate Factory movies do you hate the most? That's what I want to know. Which one do you hate the most? There you go. Tell me. Give it to me. In the comments right there. Other than that, I will see you in the next one. Bye.